Okay. Well, as long as, I think that's a good point, and I think that as long as your constituents would support
I
that.
think the concern though, with, the reason I think we did stick with, I hear that. My only concern is that's very long
I agree.
on the sign.
Yeah. Laundry, since laundry is such a long word, and it's no longer a laundry area, I think Yale Steam is probably more concise, to the point, Yale Steam Court, because you still gonna have court added to the signage. So if we had Yale Steam Laundry, that's a very long sign. Not to, there's no disrespect to the history
no, yeah.
of it, but just.
I think Yale Steam gives a lot, still, people know that as Yale Steam, I think that,
Do we have anybody in the audience that lives in the alley?
I'm right
We
here.
got a few. How about that?
And we live in that building.
Oh, you do?
We do.
Oh, great.
Well, I
Well,
guess my first question is, did you survey the people that live in the Yale Steam Laundry building about the alley name?
we've
'Cause I
surveyed a
haven't heard
number
anything.
I've worked with someone we've been speaking to a number of people. I can't say I've surveyed every single person.
Was there a request to have the management survey the people that live in the buildings there, the larger buildings?
So let me tell you, I can tell you what happened with that. So I think what happened as far as the naming story went, a general email went out from, what's the gentleman's name?
Bobby.
Bobby. It did not reach the residents.
Okay.
And so I called him on it last month, or 2 weeks ago I called him on it. And so he said, well, I've been sending it to Whitney.
The manager.
So
yeah.
I don't know if Whitney didn't see it, didn't want to
It
forward
has been circulated to,
her, but she did not forward it to the 200-something people in the building where the name is. So, not that I care frankly that much, but that there was no outreach to the residents who actually live in that building. And that's, I don't know, to blame Whitney, I don't, and who's to blame, I don't know. But that all I was about, there was some vague email that was supposedly given to her. I don't know. Do you care?
Well, I mean, I don't really care about the name, when you're saying that you surveyed the residents on the alley, I mean, I'm in that alley
Yeah.
daily, multiple times a day, and I wasn't surveyed about the name of the alley, I don't have a problem with it, but
So
it'd be
I-
helpful to make sure your outreach is getting to everybody.
yes, I mean, I would, thank you. I will
Yeah.
work to make sure that it expands to the broader community that way. I think that we can have this conversation off.
So I think moving forward, I wouldn't depend on anyone else to do your outreach. So, because Whitney didn't commit, you'd have to go to Whitney and say, hey, do this. Like, for example, the current problem we have, the other problem, I said, Whitney, you're gonna do this. And that's how, versus, I had no idea about the whole naming business. So, she did not forward that.
I saw a third hand go up as well. Yep, right in the back.
I was just gonna reemphasize, the conversation you had was correct, that the laundry was longer. We also talked about historical Yale Steam and the length of it. And the goal was to try and duplicate the type of identity that Blagden Alley has, and having a real long name is not as conducive to that sort of marketing.
So did you, the Fletcher's name, right?
Yes.
Where is that from? That's from the Tabernacle, correct?
Yeah, so the other one, there was one other name that they found that could have some form of historical significance, which is Fletcher's Court or Fletcher's Alley.
So did you talk to the Tabernacle?
I received this 3 hours ago, so I have not had the chance to.
So the Tabernacle's significant, as many people know in this room. They have been there
100 years.
more than 100 years. It's a historic wooden church.
They were there before the Yale Steam.
They were there way before many people, and they're still there. So, I mean, they would probably love to be looped in if there was a chance that they could have the alley named.
160 years.
Oh, long enough. Long enough.
I'm not
Wait,
sure.
111.
I
111.
knew it was 100 plus.
I can put you Jeff Rabbi a car, so
Huh?
they might want to be.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna thank you for that input. I think having just received this, we didn't have enough, the time span wasn't significant enough to conduct appropriate outreach to both, include the church in the conversation, so I will speak to them, and we will bring this back in a month to make sure that they have the opportunity and we conduct the outreach with the rest of the neighbors to make sure that that is understood.
Who's been there longer, you know? For the Yale Steam Laundry, the original business. You know that?
The
Before
chapel
the
was
church?
being
Chapel.
there.
Yeah.
Chapel
Tabernacle.
was there first.
All right, so we'll table that for now then. We'll move on to 1509 9th Street, Chaplains. Excellent. And this is in Commissioner Padro's district, so take it away.
So just to bring the commission and the public up to speed, there had been a resolution to a dispute that was heard by the ABC board, I think over a year ago now, to address the fact that there's outdoor seating that is close by the 801 P Street Senior Building, which is at the corner of 8th and P, and Chaplains had agreed to construct an enclosure for the eastern portion of the patio that was closest to the senior building, but the Historic Preservation Review Board did not support that because it wasn't an appropriate massing as an addition to the building at 1501 9th Street Northwest. So the architects have gone back and they've restudied that and worked with the Historic Preservation Board staff to come up with these revised plans. So
Yes.
you would present the plans.
Wonderful. Hello, my name is Rachel. I'm here representing Chaplains. We've been working with Historic for about 6 months now. Basically, you're correct, we were asked to sort of move the enclosure up to the front, so it was more with the massing of the building. The building steps down in the back, and they weren't too in favor of that. Our intent is to have an enclosure in an existing patio that respects the sidewalk, the green space, adding green space, and only enclosing this space when there's inclement weather, so rain, cold weather. Otherwise, they want to have it open as much as possible. The enclosure is made out of glass except for the steel railing, which comes up to the appropriate height, as well as the ceiling. So it's really something that's very open and not sort of impeding on the sidewalk or the neighborhood, but instead sort of opening up and allowing them to operate a little bit more during cold weather. So we've sort of moved to this design stage for that. The enclosed panels that we're planning on using are something that can be sort of attached to the ceiling when not in use, and then pulled down when in use. So it's something that will be attached to the ceiling for most of the year, which is the intent. Historic has given us a blessing to sort of move forward, which is great. And now coming for approval on the concept.
So there are actually 2 applications pending. One is the public space application to convert the patio to an enclosed structure, and then the concept design for the Historic Preservation
Correct.
Review Board staff. Now, and certainly, and I've talked to the neighbors, and they're absolutely in support of moving forward with this. The one concern that I had heard was that from the renderings, it's unclear whether or not all of the structure that isn't, transparent is going to be black, because the first rendering had portions that looked like they were gray and white. So
Sure.
is it all supposed to be black, or what is the situation?
So it's a steel structure, but it's predominantly made of glass. So the only thing that would be enclosed is the railing, and that's just to prevent heat from moving out or to enclose heat. So we do have a wood ceiling on the interior, so you would see that. And then the main structure is steel. The window panels we made from wood and painted a gray charcoal color. What we're trying to do is add to the existing design, sort of make it look like it's part of the building already. It has, a black aluminum window cladding there, so it's something that we're trying to add to it instead of introducing another color or material.
So that was the one recommendation,
Yeah.
that everything be black rather than
Yeah.
black and gray.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so with that caveat, I'll make a motion that ANC6E support the public space application and the historic preservation concept design for the addition slash covered seating for chaplains at 1501 9th Street Northwest, with the provision that, you know, all the painted elements be painted black, and that we communicate that support to the Historic Preservation Review Board and the Public Space Committee of the District Department of Transportation.
Does anybody have any questions on the commission? No? Well, I'll second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you so much. It was moved by Commissioner Padros, seconded by Commissioner Marriott. Do we have somebody, sorry, I hold it up, but we have somebody from 5D?
Correct.
Excellent. Come on down.
Okay, so I'm here from the 5th District. I believe that a small portion of Shaw is actually within the geographical boundaries of PSA 501, which is the Police Service area for the 5th District. It's about one block.
Two.
Correction, two blocks. So a lot of the issues in Shaw, if it's west of 3rd Street, 5D's pretty much doesn't have a hand in that. But some of the issues that I think 5D and 3D share a hand in are the homes that are rented by college students with the out-of-hand parties. And am I going down the right track with some of the concerns that may have been addressed here or no?
I haven't heard those, especially in this district. I think I
Okay.
haven't.
Well-
This is in my, the section of 5D is in my district, and that it's Kirby Street, Morgan, and between New Jersey Avenue and New York.
Okay, so I'm thinking too far north then. Well, disregard that, but we are dealing with the college students from Howard. If anybody, if I part anyone's curiosity, some of the homes north of Rhode Island Avenue are being rented by college students, and the parties get out of hand. We're addressing it with Howard University.
We deal more with issues from the students at Dunbar.
Right, so there's Operation Safe Passage, where we have school resource officers that escort the students with staff from the schools to the bus stops or wherever they're going. That's pretty much tamped down on some of the issues that we have with the students when they leave school, either fighting with students from another school or getting into traffic mishaps because for some reason they don't want to use crosswalks. It's a hard lesson to learn not to use a crosswalk, but with the school resource officers, we're dealing with that issue. And any issues that we have with the Howard student, with the students from Dunbar and the schools, from the students coming into this area from schools other than Dunbar.
So this is my single member district, and I also live in these two blocks, and I often see, off and on, there's people when I'm home in the afternoon during the week, there are officers that sometimes sit in the car at, whether it's, I think usually at like Kirby and N, which is right by the entrance to the school. What, the students are, they'll throw trash, they'll, get into little arguments, and I see the officers sitting in the car, but they're not out walking kind of as the school hours get out, especially as the temperature starts to rise, and we start to see a lot more, stuff happen. And I think what would be appreciated is when they're there, whether, I don't know what's a custom for this particular unit, but to have them maybe walking or patrolling as the school hour, as school starts and school ends, just to have that extra foot traffic.
Sure, so,
Whether it's foot or bike, it doesn't, but not just like sitting in the car.
so your concern is with the school resource officers that are there. I'm letting you know it's the school resource officers, not, there's a difference between the patrol officers and the school resource officers. The resource officers don't answer the radio, they don't have to leave the school, they're assigned to, some officers are at one particular school, some are at a couple schools, they rove around, they go from school to school. So that's an issue that needs to be addressed with the school resource officers. And I'm the face of MPD, I'm here, but I'm letting you know, I will reach out to Sergeant Fonts, he's the sergeant that's in charge of those officers, let them know that, there may be an issue with the officers sitting in cars. I do know that sometimes they use their vehicles to block the road to, yeah, I mean, if they're in their cars for an extended period of time, that's an issue. But that's definitely something I'll mention to Sergeant Fonts.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions from the audience? All right, thank you so much, officer, I appreciate
All
your time. Is Miss Hunter here? I don't know if I missed her, no? Okay. Moving on to 1735 10th Street. Do we have a representative? Excellent. This is also in Commissioner Padro's district.
So we're very pleased that the District of Columbia government has finally chosen a developer to redevelop a long vacant site. It's been vacant since the 1970s. It's rat infested and subsiding, collapsing, real mess over there. So we're pleased that this development team has been chosen and is in the process of coming up with some plans. The Zoning Planning and Transportation Committee did hear a presentation from them last week. I'll report out after the presentation by Octavia.
Sure.
Good evening. Thank you, Commissioner Padre, for all of the great feedback and for last night, actually, and thank you other commissioners for letting us present tonight. Charles Warren, Principal of Tays Warren Architects. I'm here with,
Yeah, I'm Mark Laurent. I'm part of the development team for the project.
and as Commissioner Padre mentioned, this is a part of the Vacant to Vibrant Properties. It's located just, it's on 10th Street, just north of French Street, just south of S Street. It's right next, it's adjacent to French Street Park, which if you're familiar with that stretch of the streets, great little park there. This property is zoned RF1, which is limited to two-unit row houses, typically as a matter of right. The lots are pretty small lots, they're about 1,000 square feet each, which is, they're non-conforming under the current zoning, which requires 1,800 square feet. They're also a little bit narrower than the zone minimum, which is 17 feet. It's also located in the Greater U Street Historic District, and as such, we're required to make a concept application, which we filed week before last. So we're on the agenda for the April HPRB hearing. What we're proposing is pretty straightforward. It's two identical row houses. There'll be a common entry. Door to the right goes one unit. The units are split. Ground floor and cellar is one unit. Second floor and third floor is the other unit. Part of the Vacant to Vibrant program is to provide workforce housing, so that the lower units will be that component, affordable component, workforce housing, which is, I always forget the number, 120?
120% of AMI, yeah.
AMI. So that's part of the mandate of the Vacant to Vibrant program. The upper units will be the market rate units. Lower units also are required to be 3-bedroom units. The upper units will be two bedrooms, a little bit more generous on the inside, but market rate units. We're proposing a 35-foot tall building, which is the max, and we kind of need every inch of that to get the program to work. We were looking at, our initial take was obviously more of a modern expression of the building. We've gotten a lot of really good feedback in the last couple of days, both at the ZPD meeting last week and also at the French Street Neighborhood Association meeting last night. We got a lot of positive, a lot of creative feedback and a lot of positive feedback that we're taking to heart. And we're also meeting with HPO staff on Thursday to discuss their comments on the design concept. But that being said, that's basically why we're here tonight, is present the concept, present where we're at in the process. Obviously, it's a work in progress, and we're sort of open to feedback, and we've gotten a lot of that so far. There are a couple of zoning issues that have come up. It's not why we're here tonight, but we'll be here again. Having to do generally with the nonconformities on the lot. So there's some side setback issues and some parking issues that we'll want to address, and probably next month we'll be here for those, because we're going to put in an application for the BZA case. But kind of here to answer questions and to hear more feedback. But that's sort of where we are right now in the process.
So I can report that the Zoning, Planning, and Transportation Committee did hear a presentation from the developers last week, and they are an enthusiastic support of most of the zoning relief that's required in order to be able to build on this site, because it is very much non-conforming. However, significant concerns were raised about the amount of glazing on the 10th Street facade of the building, the color palette, of the materials, and those were the reservations that were noted by the committee. So the committee did not, have a recommendation to the full board related to the HPO concept approval. The recommendation was unanimous in favor of seeing a proposal move forward and support of the zoning relief that's needed. I've spoken to the HPO staff person that is responsible for the project, and she is aware of the concerns that have been raised by community residents. What I'd like to do is to make a motion that ANC 6E support the overall massing and concept for 1735 to 1737 10th Street Northwest, but asking the developers to work with HPO staff to address concerns related to the amount of fenestration on the 10th Street facade, and the materials and color palette, for both the 10th Street and the alley facades of the building, and that we communicate this to the Historic Preservation Review Board.
You have a question from the audience.
My name is Timothy States, and my home is 948 S Street, and I will more than likely be most affected by the construction there. And so I just had a couple of concerns that before this proposal is accepted. My major concern is that based on the proposal, it creates a potential fire issue for me, because how things would be established, the back of my home would be obstructed as far as fire department having access. If a fire breaks out, it would be impaired. Apparently, they would have to go on a very convoluted way to get back there, and I'm not sure if there will be enough room to put water hoses, ladders, if that is indeed needed by them. So, and having had a home catch on fire before, I understand you have to, it's very important to have access, at least two sides. So what I'm asking is, before the proposal goes forward, is that the fire department has a given opinion if this is doable. Because again, I hate to be put in a position where my home is caught on fire, I'm stuck in there, or whatever, the fire department can't get access to the back of the home.
How many, I've been looking at a map, if you're on S Street and 10th, what number of house in
I'm
are
the
you?
second house in, 948.
So you have like a little awning that you can kind of see in the back off your back door?
Possibly, it's, my name was on it, Timothy States.
This doesn't say.
They were on there yesterday evening. It's the second home in from 10th Street, the corner house.
Can you come here a second? Sure. Okay, you point out, that'd be helpful. It's 108. It's 108, oh, okay, it's right here? All right, and so right now, access,
Okay,
emergency, come here.
okay, right now, access is to get to the alley, which is
Okay,
where.
this alleyway right here?
Right, to get to this alley in the back here,
Uh-huh.
that I have to leave my home, walk 2 houses east, and then a full garage south to get to the alley. Okay, and so basically, based on what they're proposing, it will I picked up last night that, and it's a very narrow walkway to get to the alley. It's very narrow. Exactly.
So
Okay.
my only question is, so there clearly was a building here once, because we look at the other side, I'm not saying you're wrong,
You're
but
clear.
just looking at this, it has the same
Well,
space on this,
well, let me
space
address
on the
that.
map.
The homes are over 100 years old. So the buildings built in 1898 certainly didn't have the fire codes that we have today. That building was demolished in the 70s, I believe. So I'm not quite sure if it would be prudent to build based on old fire codes. If that's what you're getting at. Well,
I'm
it
not
was there
getting, I'm just
before.
looking at what,
Yeah.
from the map, I'm not a fire expert.
I will comment, since you brought this to our attention, if you look at the end of the opposite block, if this townhouse was built,
Yeah.
it would look like.
Well, that's what I just said.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that is exactly, and again, those were built in 1898, and they could pass the code. I'm not quite sure if they were presented in 2018, if that would pass the code, because you
But-
wouldn't have access to the back of the property.
If there were, I mean, from what I can tell is they still have there was a fire behind my house,
Mhm.
over the summer, and if there's a fire in a house, from what it looks like, there will be a yard here behind the property, is that correct?
Yes.
So they would theoretically, the fire department would break that down if they had to.
When you say, describe that yard, please?
We have a
Well-
rear yard requirement for the building. so
Okay, that yard is not directly behind my home. That yard,
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying.
But then
they-
they would have, I mean, there's no, I don't see how you,
Well, here's the, I mean, right now, we're voting on the concept. We are gonna get, so it sounds like we're certainly gonna get to the BZA. So, you know, when we come to this, you know, we definitely want your input, you know, as we move forward with this, and different zoning questions are gonna be brought up.
this,
Particularly access for EMS
that's fine,
services.
that's fine.
and as President, I think it was last month or 2 months ago, someone with the BZA came with a BZA case, and that was a big concern they had to get approval from the fire department in order for us to support it, so
Right,
that,
that's what, right, that's
Yeah.
exactly.
so, and I believe, I can't say I know this for 100%, but I believe that they will have, if you're asking for any type of zoning, they're going to have to get a letter from the fire, whatever the term is. The FA, whatever the guy's called.
Yeah,
Sure.
Do they notify you and your tenants when they have no use?
I'm sorry, can you repeat your question?
Do they notify you,
When you say they, or you,
well, the developers, do they notify you when they?
I was at the meeting last night.
Yeah.
They have,
It's a budget
within 200
problem.
feet,
I
they
was at
have
the
to,
meeting last night,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
well, I don't know what given the number of units, does it have a fire system or no?
it will be sprinkled, yes.
So it will have sprinklers too. I'm not saying that.
No, my.
Oh, your
He's
house,
worried
your
about-
house.
He's not worried about
Yeah, I'm not
the
worried.
one
That's
going
not
up. Well, all right, well, you know, it sounds like this is something that we definitely need to keep our eyes on as we move forward then. Especially when we start taking BZA into consideration.
And as I indicated to you last night, you know, as part of the approval process for any permits, DCFD has to sign off on the permits before they're issued, but I would ask the developers to
ask.
proactively go to DCFD
Mhm.
at the same time as they're going to the BZA to confirm what the requirements would be. So that-
Okay, and
so we
my
can be
question-
comfortable with that.
Yeah, because it's not as much as them signing off, as opposed to being proactive and saying if there is a problem, as opposed to just signing things that come across.
Right, no, but they're not supposed to sign off on anything that is going to be a life safety issue.
Ideally, you're correct.
Thank you. So, we have a motion pending.
Yeah, I made the motion.
So I will second that motion. Is there any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
All right, thank you.
All right, so now we move to 293 Fifth Street.
923.
What did I say? I'm sorry. 923. It's been a long day, excuse me.
I'm just gonna take it in home.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Alyssa Bigley on behalf of the applicant, Klein Operations. I'm here this evening to give an update regarding the application. So I have plans that have been updated. So I was here last month presenting the zoning application, and the ANC took a vote on that last month. But since then, we have added one area of zoning relief, and we have begun the HPRB application process. So since last month, the area of relief for zoning that we've added is a request for relief from the loading access requirement. Under the zoning regulations, there is a requirement to provide 12 feet of linear access for a driveway or a drive aisle to a loading berth. So the property is very unique such that the only access off of the alley is 11 feet 6 inches. So we're approximately a half foot short of that 12-foot requirement, so therefore we're required to request relief from that. I presented this to the zoning subcommittee last week, and they expressed their approval of that. I'll let the commissioner speak to that. But I just wanted to put that before the board. I understand there's been some communication. You may or may not wish to make an additional vote on that this evening for the zoning relief. Whatever you choose to do, I mean, that is the ANC's decision. The other issue is the historic application. So this application went before HPRB at their last meeting. They expressed that they would provide approval of the concept and asked that the applicant continue to work with HPRB staff in order to amend some of the materiality, particularly for the penthouse that's proposed. So that is where we are right now. I would request that the ANC look at this through the historic lens tonight, since we did not do that at the last meeting.
Excellent, excellent. So you went before it. This is more or less a retroactive vote by the ANC, considering
Yes.
HPRB is giving a green light.
Exactly.
Since your meeting with HPRB, what kind of steps have you taken to meet their questions about the materials for the penthouse?
So the architect is working directly with historic staff on that. They have discussed material changes that they would like to see to the penthouse design. Essentially, they're just concerned about sort of the viewpoint from the street and how that's going to look in terms of that concept going straight up the middle of the building, as you can see on the plans there. So they're working with them on that to make those amendments.
Okay. Well, as I've had a discussion with some of the commission members, in addition to, they